Hello everyone. In this time of COVID, we the surgeons are facing a very big dilemma, and that is whether to start elective surgeries or not. This dilemma is because we want to stay safe. We want to have our patients safe, and we want to have all our associates who are working with us in the operation theatre safe. There is no one particular test which gives us any information about the status of the patient in a 100% way. So the outline of my talk would be based on how can we make sense of certain tests, how can we make use of our knowledge of how the virus is spreading to make our procedures safe. Because we now understand that we have to start the surgeries. And if the elective surgery is to be started, it has to be started in a safe way. The first point which I will be touching about is amongst the tests is the role of PCR. See, if it is positive, we know that we have to take all precautions, and he's a positive patient, so surgery is to be done planned accordingly. But what we are more concerned about today is that if the patient is asymptomatic and he has come to us for elective surgery, and if we get a PCR test, if it turns out to be negative, what next? When a patient comes for preoperative evaluation, besides the routine test for anesthesiology purposes, we have to see the X-ray chest in greater details. Some of the centers they look for getting a high resolution CT scan chest done. It has been found in many studies that the routine screening of CT for diagnosis or exclusion is not at all recommended. When it comes to PCR testing, the purpose is to know the positivity and thus the infectivity status of the patient. Before we order for the test, we need to know the current ICMR guidelines for testing. Next, if the test is positive or negative, we need to know the significance of that also. If the test is found to be positive, this helps in making some important decisions like delaying of surgery, answering benefits of surgery versus exposure and complications. Even in asymptomatic patients, there is unexpected higher mortality, up to 27.5%, and higher morbidity figures. All asymptomatic patients who have tested positive should be consented about higher complication rates before surgery. This also alarms the attending healthcare workers to have extra precautions during procedure. In a situation where the test is negative, it actually could be a false negative, which is our prime concern. A false negative test may give false sense of security. There are a number of factors which can give a false negative test. The most important amongst these factors is the efficiency of the test and in which phase of the disease it has been taken. The positivity decreases with passage of time. Nasal swabs are positive up to 73.3% in first week, 72.3% in second week, and 50.3% in third week. There is a similar fall in percentage of sample positivity in all different groups. Another factor is timing of sample collection. Ideally, it should be done as close to the time of surgical procedure as much it is possible. Patient, if after taking the sample is allowed to go home, may get infected and come back as an infected patient. So there should be minimal delay between the sample and the surgery. Moreover, the surgeon has to decide that the waiting for results may delay the surgical procedure itself. Site of sample collection too can lead to fallacious false negative results. Bronchoalveolar lavage gives highest yield followed by a nasopharyngeal swab. In some recent studies, sputum has also shown positive results in up to 72% of the cases. Virus has been isolated in feces in up to 29%. According to some studies, repeat test, if it is done in less than 5 days, increases the positivity and hence decreases the false negativity, and this figure is close to 17%. Does positivity of the test mean infectivity, or is it somehow proportional? Probably no. If that was so, all asymptomatic carriers would behave same, which is actually not true. No contact of a patient a asymptomatic carrier may turn positive, whereas on the other hand, majority contacts of another patient may turn positive, which we normally call as the super spreaders. Based on data available, if we test 180 asymptomatic patients, one comes to be positive. So the cost benefit ratio is minimal, and the approximately cost at current charges is rupees 8 lakh 10,000. So we have to see how much resources the patient has to, or the institution has to divest to do all these asymptomatic testings. The CDC interpretation is very clear. If you test negative, you probably were not infected at time of sample collection. However, that does not mean you will not get sick. The test results only means that you did not have COVID-19 at the time of testing. So it has become absolutely clear that if a patient on investigation is found to be positive, that gives us a huge advantage of planning our surgery. But if he is negative, we need to have certain things in mind. The samples drawn from different areas of the body have got different results in different times of illness. It has got a varied sensitivity with good amount of false negativity. Negative tests actually does not rule out infectivity or spread of the virus. It is not very useful if not done immediately prior to surgery. If we see the ICMR guidelines dated 18th May 2020, we see point 9, it says that no emergency procedure including deliveries should be delayed for lack of test. However, sample can be sent for testing if indicated as above. So if we see the first 8 points, we find that all of these points are basically for symptomatic patients. If you see point 5, it says asymptomatic, direct and a high risk contacts of a confirmed case to be tested once between day 5 and day 10 of coming into contact. All other testing criteria are for symptomatic patients. Similarly, ISA National in its advisory has got no mention of COVID 19 as a routine test before surgery. We are intelligent enough to understand that now we are on our own. It is our decision when to start elective surgeries. We have to take certain precautions about which I am going to discuss in the next few minutes. Taking this in our mind that all the patients are positive and we have to save ourselves also while starting the elective surgeries. When we are taking such patients to operation theatre, our prime aim is healthcare worker safety, safety of the patient, and protection of the environment. In a study conducted in Japan, it was found that surface samples were taken from infected patients' room before and after cleaning, and it was found that although the 17 out of 23 samples were found to be contaminated before cleaning, when proper cleaning was done using proper disinfectants which were in right dilution, the sample positivity rate was 0%. So the conclusion of this study was that if cleaning is done properly using hydrogen peroxide or related solutions, that is very essential and it decreases or eliminates the fomite based transmission. In another study, healthcare workers at different levels of exposure were tested, and it was found that 15% of workers directly involved in patient care got infected, whereas this number increased to 16% in non-patient facing group and 18% of non-clinical group. The conclusion of the study was that if proper PPE were made available and its use was done in a proper way, it was very important in healthcare safety. Most important aspect for safety is to understand the basic fact that it is an airborne infection. And if we are considering the asymptomatic patients as carriers and spreaders, we should know what are the times when the spread is possible. It is when, if we consider patient as a source, whenever he is coming to OT, that is point one, at time of intubation, at times of drilling, using of cautery, if it is a laparoscopic surgery, and at time of extubation if the patient coughs. So these are the times when the patient can release the virus into the atmosphere. Now, if we have to decrease the chance of getting infected, we have to act at 3 points. First is to decrease the release of virus at these all points that we discussed just now. Second is, if we can somehow dilute or excavenge all the released viruses. And third is taking care of the settled fomite based transmission. Whenever a patient is wheeled inside the operation theatre complex, care should be taken that he should be wearing a N95 mask. If he is conscious, he should have washed his hands properly, and if the patient is unconscious, possibly if he should be made to wear some gloves. The stay in operation theatre complex should be minimum. So as the patient should be wheeled in as late as possible whenever the surgery is to be done, and should be immediately wheeled out of the recovery. And if the patient is to be shifted to ICU or some other area of the hospital on ventilator, he should be shifted on a disposable ambu if he is to be kept intubated. Intubation is considered to be a major source of aerosol generation, but if it is done properly, the aerosol generation is very minimal. PPE for the anesthesia team are very important. They should be wearing N95 mask. A proper PPE gear should be there, headgear and the shield should be there. Place of intubation, timing and who should be doing it is important. There might be set up where it is a possibility of intubating the patient in one common area and then shifting the patient onto the operation theatre room. But if that is not possible, individual intubation should be done in each ER. The intubation preferably should be done and the surgery should be followed around 15 to 20 minutes after the intubation. The purpose is that whatever aerosol generation has been there, the virus would settle or the aerosol would settle onto the surfaces and would not be airborne. The most experienced person of the team should be intubating the patient so that the tube goes inside the patient in first attempt only. Preoperative antiemetics are advisable so that the patient does not vomit at time of intubation. We should do a good amount of pre-oxygenation. HME filters should be used in the inspiratory and the expiratory limbs. Manual ventilation should be done to minimize the aerosol production. A protective barrier enclosure can be used at time of intubation. Closed circuit and limited ventilatory disconnections, if it has to be done, should be done in expiratory phase. These all are the precautions that need to be taken at time of intubation. Of course, without saying, if the patient can be operated in regional anesthesia, that should be the first choice for the anesthesiologist. It is better if we use video laryngoscopy or rapid sequential intubation. Difficult intubations would be better managed by these things. To confirm that the tube is inside the chest, rather than looking for the breath, we should look at the rising of the chest and the monitor for all the hemodynamic changes. NG, if required, should be put in at that particular time. Degloving after intubation is important so that it does not contaminate the different areas of and around the OT table. Immediately after intubation, we should decontaminate all the instruments which are used for intubation and all the areas of the table which are in close contact to that particular area or the head end of the operation theatre table. As I said earlier, waiting for 10 to 15 minutes would allow the aerosol to settle down and decrease the virus load in the ambient OT air. This is how the HME filter can be placed at different limbs, both in adult and the pediatric age group. We need to discard all the breathing circuits, the masks, tubes, filters, and possibly soda lime also. Surface decontamination of all the surfaces which are close to the head end, the screen boards, the electronic equipment should be done immediately after intubation and after the completion of surgical procedure. OT table, all the surfaces of the OT, the floor and the elevator when the patient is shifted out need to be cleaned by hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide vaporizers are also now available, which can be used as a fogging instrument to decontaminate the surface. Now, to summarize some of these facts which can reduce the transmission is, if we can have a separate OR for patients who are COVID positive, that will be good. We need to define the flow of patients in the operation theatre complex, which is individualized to each setup. Regional anesthesia is preferable. We have to define PPE for each group of healthcare workers, and each of them has to abide and adhere to it religiously. Post procedure disinfection of the OT complex is important. Most important is that no healthcare worker should leave one OR to go into another OR till the time the case is finished and he has done the doffing. There should be minimum 1 hour between the cases, and this time needs to utilize for surface disinfection and procedural disinfection. We have to define the duties for induction, for shifting of the patients. Positive pressure, if it is there in the operation theatre, it can contaminate the other sterile areas also if the door is opened. So having exhaust and creating the negative pressure inside the operation theatre and adding fresh air would be important. Now we come to the second point of dilution or removing of the released virus in the OT air. It has been found in some studies that the virus, the survival decreases at more than 24 degrees temperature. So the temperature, if in operation theatre, is kept at higher setting, it is better, and it should be kept at the highest acceptable, comfortable limit. Virus becomes inactive at humidity between 40 to 70%. We can have indoor filters or UV light emitting equipment just close to the patient, which can decrease the emitted virus from the air. Proper surface cleaning becomes important to decrease the viral load. If we have to decrease the airborne transmission, there are certain important changes which need to be done in the OT atmosphere. From a positive pressure OT, it has to be changed to a negative pressure. The ideal pressure is minus 2.5 to 5 pascals. The air changes from a positive pressure OT have to be increased to more number, which is around 10 to 12 per minute. Exhaust have to be put in. The exhausted air needs to be decontaminated using either a HEPA filter, or the exhaust air has to be released at least 3 meters above the tallest point of the building. The filter which are there to clean these exhausts needs to be cleaned regularly. If there is an anteroom which can be prepared just outside the operation theatre, that is a big help, because this is an area which can prevent the contamination of the outside sterile zone from inside unsterile OT environment. If we talk about different scenarios in the hospitals, we could have an operation theatre which has just a window AC or a split AC installed. Now, if we have to create a negative pressure, we need to add an exhaust fare, as it can be seen in the image also. This extract fan will take out the air, which leads to dilution, and new fresh air needs to be added, which is through the split AC unit. Now, once this is done, there will be a definite drop in the there will be definite increase in the temperature of the operation room. This can be maintained by installing or putting in another split AC unit. All the NABH hospitals have got operation theaters where the positive pressure is maintained inside. The purpose of maintaining positive pressure inside is that the unsterile air from outside the operation room does not get into the operating room. In this current scenario, it is the reverse that is required. We require a negative pressure of up to minus 2.5 to 5 pascals inside the OR. Now, the purpose is that the contaminated air by the viral droplets does not go outside, and if the door is opened, the air from outside gets inside. This leads to one important point. If the door is opened repeatedly, unsterile air from outside would get inside the operating room. So the door opening should be minimized. Now, to create a negative pressure, we need to have certain amount of exhaust added to the operating rooms, and this exhausted air has to be replaced by new fresh air. So the number of fresh air changes inside the operating room, they also are going to increase. If somehow it is not possible to change the positive pressure of the OT to a negative pressure, it is better that the air conditioning is turned off during the procedure. Laminar flow and functional high efficiency filters are preferable in these situations. To decrease the viral load around the patient, we can use UV lamps, which are commercially available as RIDS, which has a combination of 5 UV lamps mounted on movable frame, or it could be sterile, which has got an inbuilt UV lamp with HEPA carbon filters and blowers. The ideal UV light for decontamination is UVC rays, and it has been found that with increased exposure of time, the viral load decreases, and after completion of 15 minutes, the viral load is negligible. So, to conclude, I would say that till the time the air clears further, use of adequate PPEs to all the staff who are working in the operation theatre. We need to do proper surface cleaning. We have to take general precautions I have already enlisted. We have to get the test done. If he's found to be positive, we have to take a call to postpone or to do the surgery at that time based on how urgent the surgery is, what the decision based on the disease is. But if the patient is found to be negative, then we have to presume that he's positive and he's a super spreader. He's a super spreader and take all the precautions so that we can save ourselves. Thank you.